Hi everyone! Today we're making a chunky knit stocking. This stocking measures about 17 by 12 inches once it's folded over like this. And it's a super easy, beginner-friendly project that should take you about an hour to complete. So let's get into the tutorial. Our first step is going to be making a slip knot. And we want this slip knot to be pretty small in comparison to the slip knots that we would usually make for a chunky knit blanket. We want this one to be like not quite 2 finger widths in size, almost like 1.5. Or if we measure, we want it to be approximately 1.5 inches in size. After we've got our first loop done, we're going to pull loops through to make our first chain. And we're going to be making a total of 18 loops. So your first loop here, your slip knot, counts as loop 1, and now I've done loop 2, and I'm keeping it approximately the same size. So let's pull a total of 18 loops through. Let's just double check that we got 18 stitches. Now for row 2, we're going to do another 18 loops, except this time working from right to left. So let's go into this end loop here, and we're going to just pull a loop up. Now that's a little bit too big, so I'm just going to make it a little bit tighter. Perfect. And then I'm going into my second loop and pulling another loop up. So we'll continue to pull loops up until we have our second row of loops. All right, now I've got my 18 loops in my second row, and for my third, fourth, fifth, and sixth row, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to keep the loops at 18, just going back and forth until we get to 6 rows total of 18 loops. So I've got my 6 rows of 18 loops completed here. If you have done it correctly, you should have finished on this side. For row 7, we're going to do a decrease. We want to start getting that boot or toe shape in our stocking. So what we're going to do is take these 2 loops and combine them into one. So you're going to take the first loop, put it over the second loop, and pull up a loop combining these 2. This is a decrease, and you can see that we're starting to get that shape. So we're going to do one on this end and one on this end. The rest in the middle are just going to be regular loops. When you get to the end of the row and have 2 loops left, we're going to make another decrease at this point. So this time we're going to take the last loop and put it over the second last loop. And then we're going to pull a new loop up through those 2 loops. So basically when we're doing a decrease, we always want the outside loop to go over top of the inside loop. At this point, you should have 16 loops. And for our 8th row, we're now going to decrease again so that we have 14 loops. Now starting on this side, we're going to take this outside loop and place it over top of the inside loop and pull our working yarn through to make one single loop. You can really start to see the shape of the toe of the stocking. Then all the ones in the middle, we're just going to do as normal, and then pause when you get to the last 2. Now at my last 2 stitches, I'm going to do another decrease, take the outside loop over top of the inside loop, and pull our working yarn through to make one loop. So at this point, we should have 14 loops. Row 9, we're going to do our last decrease using the same method, putting our end loop over our inside loop and pulling up one new loop. Now our very last decrease, the outside loop over the inside loop, pull up our working yarn to make one loop. So this was row 9 and you should now have 12 loops. We're now going to make 8 rows of 12 stitches. We won't be doing any more decreases. We'll just be working with these 12 loops and doing 8 rows to make it taller. Okay, so we've completed our 8 rows of 12 loops, and you've probably already figured out that what we're going to be doing is folding it over to make our stocking. At this point, I would like to work on the top of my stocking, the part that folds over, and I want that to be in white. That being said, if you want yours to be one single color, you can just keep going with the same color and skip the step of changing colors. To move over to our white color, what we're going to do with the gray is just make sure that we leave a long enough tail to weave in. So we're going to do the length of the stocking that we have times 2 and cut that off, and that will be plenty to weave in at the end. To start our white, all I'm going to do is pick up where I left off, but this time with my new color. And I'm just leaving a tiny tail here because I don't really need to use that to attach my sides together. I need this long tail to attach my sides together, and then when I finish with my white, I'll have a long tail as well. But for starting with the new color, we'll just leave a little tail that we'll weave in. We're now on row 18, and we're still doing 12 loops, but this time we're using white. We're going to complete another 7 rows of white, still doing 12 loops. For the very last row, we're going to close off these stitches, and to do that, we're going to make a loop like we normally would, but it will be a little bit bigger than what we've been doing. Then in this second loop, we're going to make another loop that's again a little bit bigger. So we've got 2 bunny ears here, and this first bunny ear is going to go over top of the second bunny ear. Now we're going to make another loop, again a little bit bigger than what we've been doing, and this loop is going to go over top of that one. Before we tie a knot up here and completely finish off with the white, remember that we need to leave a long enough tail to weave our 2 sides together. So what we're going to do is leave approximately 2 times the length of the white that we've knit. So down here, 2 times, and cut that off. And then we'll do just a simple knot at the top. Now to turn it into a stocking, we have to weave the 2 sides together. So we'll start up top here with the white. What we're going to do is take this yarn tail, let's get everything else out of the way, take this long yarn tail, and we're going to weave into the spaces to attach them together. We're going to just keep going into all these spaces and weave together. Now we've got some end pieces left over, so what I'm going to do with these 2 is tie a knot and then shove both inside. For this one down here, I'm just gonna trim it so it's shorter and then shove it inside a hole here. Now we're ready to fold over the top. Last step is making a little tie so that we can hang our stocking. And I think I'm gonna do mine in white so that it matches the top. Just cut a little piece, and then what you're gonna do is find the side, and you wanna tie this through at least 2 loops just so that it doesn't stretch out. So find 2 loops, tie your knot, and then you're just going to twist it so that we hide that knot, and there you go. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and hope you love your chunky knit stocking. Don't forget to subscribe for later, and happy holidays.